So the Olympics were happening over the weekend, and you would think, well, this would be a good time to point out that they're happening in South Korea, the Winter Olympics. It would be a good time to point out that South Korea is a wonderful place, and North Korea is, to borrow some language from President Trump, a bleep hole. It is not a nice country. It is the worst country maybe on the face of the earth. Between the years 1994 and 1997, somewhere between 350,000 and 3.4 million North Koreans died of starvation. It was about 2 decades ago in mass starvation. Okay, they still have mass gulags. They still, in the 1980s, had concentration camps where they would legitimately torture or murder people. They still do in some places of the country. If you do not do what the regime wants you to do, they will kill you. They killed, the regime, Kim Jong Un, recently killed his brother-in-law, I think, that he murdered. Or his uncle. It was both, actually. His uncle he killed by tossing him to dogs, and his brother-in-law, I believe, he murdered in a VX attack. He actually used a weapon of mass destruction in a public place. He sent an assassin to basically put a handkerchief filled with a deadly spore over the guy's face and killed him outright. Well, that would be an example of a bad country. What is not an example of a bad country is the United States. And if we're going to talk about people who are forwarding the aspirations of bad countries, you don't actually start with President Trump. So Jeff Flake, who's the senator from Arizona, has been very critical of the president of the United States because he says that President Trump has said ridiculous things about the press. I agree. He said that President Trump has made overtures to regimes like Vladimir Putin's, which has been true more in theory than in practice. Here's Jeff Flake going after Trump for giving support to dictators. Then I'm going to show you who actually gives support to dictators.
I think the president needs to stop calling Democrats or Republicans or others who don't stand or applaud at every line that he has, that they're un-American. He also used that term, or treasonous. Words matter. And when he talks about fake news, for example, I gave another speech where I talked about how that gives aid and comfort to authoritarians around the world who are now labeling their opposition or dismissing real dissent as fake news. So those things matter.
Okay, the reason that I'm showing this is because the media, there's been the media line, right? Chris Cuomo yesterday tweeted out that the media have been under assault from President Trump. And the reason people don't trust the media is because the media have been ripped apart by the president of the United States. This, of course, is the typical line, is that dictators all over the world are taking their cues from President Trump because President Trump is so unfriendly to the press. Okay, now let's talk about why people actually hate the press. The real reason people hate the press is because the press are a bunch of sycophants when it comes to some of the worst dictators on planet Earth. Not everyone in the press. Right, Jack Tapper at CNN, notably, has been ripping other members of the press for kissing up to the North Korean regime. But the sister of Kim Jong Un arrived in South Korea for the Olympics, and she was giving some pretty spectacular side eye to Mike Pence. And because Mike Pence is evil, as we all know from how he hates gay people, apparently, Mike Pence has to be given side eye. If you don't give Mike Pence side eye, this means that you are a bad person. But if you do give Mike Pence side eye, you can go back home to a regime that routinely murders thousands of people, that shoots deserters, that attempts to take everyone who tries to make trade with the outside world and kills them. And the media will just kiss her rear. So here's CNN's headline. Kim Jong Un's sister is stealing the show at the Winter Olympics. Why? Because she's there and she's smiling. Ooh, okay. Here's another headline. This is all from mainstream media outlets. Let's do some more of these headlines. This is from the Wall Street Journal. The North Korean cheer squad's presence was impossible even for the skaters to ignore. Okay, we do actually, I believe, have some actual film of the tweet squad, do we not? So here's what the tweets of the cheer squad, rather. Here's what the cheer squad looked like from North Korea, and the media were just over the moon about this. This was so glorious. Now, I want to point something out. We've just had 2 full years of the media explaining that Mike Pence and Donald Trump want to turn women in the United States into refugees from The Handmaid's Tale. In The Handmaid's Tale, women are forced to wear red uniforms, procreate at the whim of the dictatorship, and do everything the dictators tell them to do. Then there's the North Korean cheer squad, which wears red uniforms, gets pregnant and has abortions whenever the regime tells them to, is shot if they don't do exactly what they are supposed to do, and the media cheer them. Here's what it looked like in South Korea. Okay, so there you have it. And the media love the North Korean cheerleading squad. Sure, if they don't cheer properly, they get shot in the head back home, so that's excellent. But This is something the media have always loved. They love the idea of human beings as cogs in a vast machine. And I remember back during the 2010 Beijing Olympics? Was it 2010 when they did the Olympics in Beijing? I can't remember now. I believe it was. And when they did that Olympics, the opening ceremonies were thousands of people marching in unison and waving their arms in unison. And it truly was an amazing spectacle. And the media was just excited about it because whenever people just become little widgets to be manipulated by the state, the media has a really good time with it, particularly when they're Marxist dictatorships. They're not so big on non-Marxist juntas in South America, for example, where they force people to goose step, but they are very big on these sorts of displays. Oh my goodness, look at the coordination. Look at the magical coordination of all the people. Yeah, well, you know what? I'd clap in time, too, if they were threatening to shoot my family back home, if I didn't clap properly and smile properly for the cameras because of the yush, which is what they call the regime in North Korea. They have this philosophy of yush, which suggests that there's a cult of personality worship for the great leaders in North Korea. Here's some more headlines from the media celebrating all of this, of course. So we can go back to, we have the Wall Street Journal. This one is from Reuters, I believe. Amid Olympic détente, Pence snubs North Koreans and visits Pyeongchang. Oh, how dare Mike Pence snub the North Koreans? He's supposed to be nice to the lady. He didn't stand for the North Korean national anthem. So, according to the left media, it is good when Americans don't stand for the national anthem, but it is bad when Mike Pence doesn't stand for the North Korean national anthem. You get that? The American national anthem, standing for the freest country in the history of the world, good when American citizens kneel for it. Bad when Mike Pence doesn't stand for the anthem for a country that is oppressing millions of its own people, 20 million of its own people at current count. Okay, more headlines from the media. I mean, there are just tons of these. This is from Politico. Fred Warmbier criticizes North Korean Olympic spirit. How dare Fred Warmbier criticize the North Korean Olympic spirit? Oh, you mean just because his son was murdered by the North Koreans? Remember Otto Warmbier? He was the college student who traveled over to North Korea, idiotically, and then tried to supposedly steal a poster from a hotel room, and they literally beat him to death. I mean, they beat him so badly that by the time he was returned to his parents at home, he died in the hospital just days later. But how dare Fred Warmbier criticize the North Korean Olympic spirit? Just terrible. Just awful for him to do that. And that wasn't the full extent of the media treatment here. Okay, this one was from BuzzFeed. The only decent one was from BuzzFeed, which shows you how crazy things are, saying, don't be fooled by North Korea's Winter Olympics charm offensive. When BuzzFeed is the voice of reason, you know something has gone intensely wrong with the moral fabric inside the American media. And it gets even worse. In just a second, I'm going to read to you some of the accounts of Kim Jong Un's sister. The worshipful accounts of Kim Jong Un's sister, because it's pretty astonishing. We're going to get to that in already. So that was not the extent of the media's fawning coverage of North Korea. So here is the lead from CNN, quote, if diplomatic dance were an event at the Winter Olympics, Kim Jong Un's younger sister would be favored to win gold. With a smile, a handshake, and a warm message in South Korea's presidential guestbook, Kim Yo-jong has strung a chord with the public just one day into the Pyeongchang Games. I hope Pyongyang and Seoul get closer in our people's hearts and move forward the future of prosperous unification, she said in her guestbook message, referring to the capitals of North and South Korea. By the way, that's not a nice message. If you think that's a nice message, it's because you don't know anything about North Korea. It has been part of North Korea's regime. It's been part of their stated goal since literally the first day it was initiated. The stated goal of North Korea is reunification of South Korea and North Korea under the auspices of the Kim family. This has been their goal since the foundation of the North Korean regime in 1950. And the idea that this was some sort of overture, oh yeah, let's get together and have a republic, a federated republic. Nonsense. Absolute sheer nonsense. The Kim family knows the minute they break down that wall between North and South Korea, every person in North Korea rushes into South Korea. But listen to this coverage. It's just insane. Seen by some as her brother's answer to American first daughter Ivanka Trump, Kim, at 30, is not only a powerful member of Kim Jong Un's kitchen cabinet, but also a foil to the perception of North Korea as antiquated and militaristic. That's not a perception. They are antiquated and militaristic. Have you ever seen those photos at nighttime from space of North Korea and South Korea? South Korea completely lit up. North Korea completely dark, except for Pyongyang, the capital. There's literally one light there, which is probably the presidential palace. I love that they say that she's the answer to Ivanka Trump. Last time I checked, Ivanka Trump isn't forwarding the deaths of tens of thousands of people one day at a time. Last I checked, for all of the things people say about Ivanka Trump, she isn't standing up for her evil brother who's sitting around trying to launch nuclear weapons at people around the world or planning to do so. Just ridiculous. they bury this. Paragraph 5 is finally when CNN notes that, by the way, North Korea might be a bad place. As North Korea's brutal dictator, Kim's brother has ruled with an iron fist since coming to power, operating Nazi-style prison camps, repressing political opposition, even executing senior officers and his own family members in an effort to consolidate power. But don't worry, CNN is there to make sure that everybody is happy about it. Here's Reuters, quote, a prim young woman with a high forehead and hair half swept back quietly gazes as the throngs of people pushing for a glimpse of her, a faint smile on her lips and eyelids low as 4 bodyguards jostle around her. In her first appearance on the global stage, Kim Yo-jong, the sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong Un, had her every move closely scrutinized. Crowds applauded as she stood for the South Korean anthem during the opening ceremony for the start of the Winter Olympic Games, while her big smiles and relaxed manner left a largely positive impression on the South Korean public. My goodness. I mean, this is Walter Duranty quality stuff. For folks who don't know, Walter Duranty was a reporter for the New York Times, and he famously traveled in, I think it was 1930-31, over to Russia, where he promptly said that everyone in Russia was doing great. There was no starvation. Rumors of mass starvation of the Holodomor in the Ukraine were vastly overstated, and there was nothing like that happening. That was a lie. Tens of millions of people were dying in mass starvations thanks to the Stalin regime. The New York Times covered it that way, and he won a Pulitzer Prize for it, which is demonstrative of how corrupt the media are. The media were racing to see who could provide the most fawning coverage of the North Korean sister. Here's the Washington Post, quote, they marveled at her barely there makeup and her lack of bling. They commented on her plain black outfits and simple purse. They noted the flower-shaped clip that kept her hair back in a no-nonsense style. Here she was, a political princess. But the North Korean first sister had none of the hallmarks of power and wealth that Koreans south of the divide have come to expect. In looks-obsessed South Korea, many 20-something women list plastic surgery and brand-name bags as life goals. Most of all, Kim Yo-jong was an enigma. Just like them, but nothing like them. A woman with a sphinx-like smile who gave nothing away during her 3-day Olympic-related visit to South Korea as brother Kim Jong Un's special envoy. Wow. Wow. I mean, the level of fawning from the Washington Post there is so extreme, it's crazy. I mean, that is just... Imagine they write that about Eva Braun, and you're basically coming closer to what this actually is. Eva Braun at the 1936 Olympic Games, her shockingly blonde hair, her beautiful good looks, her glamour style. My goodness. And just, again, the media have a certain love for Marxist dictatorships that they certainly do not have even for, I'd say, the American system of government in some ways. They would never cover an emissary from America that way if they were the foreign press. I mean, it's pretty incredible, actually. There is something else going on here, obviously, and that is that the Trump administration is at direct odds with the North Korean regime. And the Trump derangement syndrome that has arisen in the media is so crazy that Mike Pence being in South Korea, the Trump administration being the president, Trump being the president, and that means the enemy of my enemy is my friend, even if that means that my enemy, the enemy of my enemy is actually an evil, repressive North Korean dictatorship that slaughters tens of thousands of its own people on a regular basis. By the way, if you actually want to help and do something about this, my friend Bethany Mandel is a big fundraiser for the Free North Korean charity. And you can help. It's Liberty in North Korea. This is one of the ways that you can actually help smuggle people out of North Korea. Go over to her Twitter account. She offers ways for people to escape from North Korea. You can offer money. It's something like $400 helps one person escape from North Korea and out to the West. That is a worthwhile cause because this is truly evil. If you're in the media and your life has led you to the point where you are propping up some of the worst people on planet Earth because you hate Donald Trump that much, let me suggest that you go back and repent your sins. And it's one of the things I hate most about politics, this friend of my enemy is my friend nonsense. It's just not true. I hated it when it was the Trump campaign doing it with the alt-right during the campaign. I hate it when it's the American media doing it with North Korea. It's worse when it's North Korea because that's an actual foreign foe. Like the alt-right is a relatively small force in American politics. They've been marginalized, I think, at this point, despite the original attempts by the Trump campaign to integrate them into the Trump campaign. I think they've been marginalized by this point, thank God. But I think North Korea obviously is a major foreign threat. And what they've been doing lately, firing nuclear-tipped missiles, or at least dropping nuclear bombs in nuclear tests, firing long-range missiles, right? This stuff is extraordinarily destabilizing. And when the media are cheering them on, it makes the North Korean regime feel that if they keep up the pressure on the United States, eventually the United States will grant them more concessions. Understand, the North Korean economy is almost entirely dependent on infusions of foreign capital. Those infusions of foreign capital happen because of blackmail. The reason the North Koreans keep firing off long-range ballistic missiles is because they want the West to come to the table and then give them money as a payoff. They did this in the 90s with Bill Clinton. They did it in the 2000s with George W. Bush. They've done it with the Chinese, and now they're trying again with the West. Trump so far has not been willing to do that, which is, of course, the right move. We need to starve them out the sanctions we've placed on them are not nearly harsh enough. Nicholas Eberstadt has an excellent column over at Commentary Magazine, very long piece, comprehensive piece about the situation in North Korea. What he suggests is that we make the sanctions significantly harsher on North Korea. That's exactly right. But the fact that the media are granting all sorts of credibility to a regime simply because that regime is anti-Trump is both morally dubious and ethically astonishing. It's truly amazing. I mean, the Washington Post slogan is "Democracy dies in darkness." Perhaps the slogan for the entire media right now ought to be "North Koreans die in darkness," because while they are glowing about Kim Jong Un's little sister, they are willing to do all of that in order. They're ignoring the fate of the people who are being slaughtered en masse in North Korea. It's just disgusting.